Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Once again,
we're
here
back
we are
again.
for another story. And we're so grateful for you for tuning in tonight, but also the other four stories as well. Now, I think we need to develop some kind of award, Arnold, for people who watch everyone, like a gold medal.
Yeah, award yourself the CDM. Do you remember that advert?
You're going back now.
Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
Woo! Advertising. Well,
Other chocolates are available.
in
Just
our
ask,
cupboard.
ask Sharon.
Oh, well, she may have some that have come out of our cupboard, but there's always more there. Anyway, we move on. This week's story is called A Hop, Step, and a... Now, just wait and see what the other thing is. That'll be next time, in 2 weeks' time, hopefully. So, from the last time, there was a lot of detail about our wedding, of course, because I was covering that bit. And Kaz, our lovely friend Kaz, loves to put comments and even messages us about these stories, about everything else as well. She's a great friend.
We love Kaz.
Yeah. And she mentioned, Pam, I need to see the velvet, well, Pamster, she calls me. I need to see the velvet jacket that you were going on and on about. So you need to show a photograph of it. Well, Kaz, always in obedience. Can we see that? That is, we're peeping around the corner. That's funny. The green velvet jacket. It may not look very green there, but look how innocent we both look. Look at that, and young. And Arnold, your hair is a different color. Mine's similar.
More often as well. That was Pamela's 21st birthday, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Yeah, it was a great day. So thanks, Kaz, for your little prompt. And there might be some more little props popping up tonight to help remember, because we do like visuals, don't we? Apart from ourselves. Okay, I think we're ready to get on with this. A hop, step, and a... Arnold, over to you.
If you try to steer a stationary car, you'll find it's an impossible task. But a car that's in motion will always respond to directions the driver might ask. In those early years of our married life, we certainly didn't get everything right, but our decision to put God first in our plans meant we always kept him in our sight. So Pam started a Good News Club in our home. It was a decision we would never regret.
True.
A short hop, but still a move forward, without knowing what would be our next step. Pam's weekly training classes began, and soon our front room was filled to the brim with boys and girls from our neighbourhood there to hear the good news about him.
It was a lot of fun in the Good News Club, but the hard work went behind the scenes. Let's be said that. Let's be said that. That's very bad grammar. Let that be said. No, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of work in the background, okay? So every week I went to a training class Tuesday morning, and I went down to my sister-in-law's house, Heather's house in Carrickfergus. And sadly, Heather is no longer with us. She died very unexpectedly last year. And she was a very close friend as well, not just because she was my sister-in-law. So that was a really sad time. But you know something? I know I will see Heather again in heaven. And that's the hope, the assurance that I have because of Jesus, the resurrection, eh? Shall I do a wee preach? No, let's not do that bit there. So the training classes, we had two experts leading us, Jennifer Evans and Jennifer Heyer. The two Jennifers were well known in the area, and they really were so good at what they did. They were called local directors in the charity that they worked with. And the two Jennifers would set out the whole program that we were to teach the children that week. So all the different ingredients. And every ingredient had to have a visual aid. So, for example, when we were doing the Bible story, Bible lesson they called it because it's teaching. Okay, that's fair dues. But when they were doing the Bible story, the different characters, I had to cut every one out in flannel graph. You would buy these books that were flocked at the back, flannel graph, cut right every little nook and cranny of these Bible characters, and to be ready to stuck on the flannel graph board. I know some people will remember these, and we had the pleasure of giving all our flannel graph books and characters, so many of them, to an African guy who was doing that in Africa where they didn't have technology and that. So they could still be floating. Well, they'll not be floating around Africa. They were only floating sometimes when I didn't put them in the right position on the board. Because that was another thing you had to do, line them up properly. So that was the Bible characters. Then there were lots of fun ideas and songs to sing. And we did like fun ideas with quizzes. And so we had to make all these props. There were no computers or anything. Everything was handmade. So one of the props that we used was spaghetti in the pot for the quiz. And the idea was each child, 2 teams, one answered a question right, they would get to pull a string out of the pot. So maybe we should have a little competition.
Oh,
Sorry, Arnold, that's not very long, is
that's not going to feed me tonight.
They were, just hold that up a minute, because I'm going to
Right.
do one, because
hold
we're
it
a
for
bit
you.
competitive, aren't we? And I can't remember where the long ones are, but they're all different lengths in here. Let me see. Please let this be a look. Yeah. I'm going to win this one. I'm going to pull the lid off as well.
Wow.
Oh, you see, that's the idea. Look, my team's winning already. I'm not competitive at all, though,
And then
Arnold.
you had to tie them together, each team, to
And
see
whichever
who
team had the longest. So they were great times with the quiz. That was just an idea of what we used to give you folks an idea. So the songs, if we did new songs that weren't already published, we had to write out all the words big enough for the kids to see and make them out of folded cards for turning the pages, and the memory verses for that week. We had to do all that and then flock it on the back to go on the flannel graph board. And those Bible characters sometimes had very weird names, so we had to put them up for the children so they were all spelt. Then there was attendance incentives. There was all sorts. The 2 Jennifers really made it fun and exciting and interesting for the children.
Of course, it was Jennifer Guyan in those days, wasn't it?
It was Jennifer Hire now. So still very happy memories of those days. Still in touch with Jennifer Hire. Yeah. So that was that. But so a lot of work behind the scenes, wasn't it? And you were out working all day, every day. I had the 2 girls at home. And Julie was a very young baby at the time. Sharon was at nursery for 4 mornings a week. And I was also working 2 nights night duty. And then, so I'd go to the training class Tuesday morning, scribbling all the notes away. And the 2 Jennifers often give us helpful notes as well. And doing all these visual aids, plus remembering what I was supposed to be talking about to the children, because you can't have notes with children, really, can you? No. So you had to remember all. So 2 nights night duty does quite a bit of funny stuff to your brain. And I had to get up off night duty, sleep for a few hours in the morning, get up and teach the Good News Club.
Thankfully, we were a bit younger then. Our memories were slightly better.
I know. You really notice a difference with this age thing. And we're very grateful that we have got good enough memories to see us through. So that was what Good News Club was like, and our lovely kind neighbour Betty, who you'll hear a wee bit more about Betty later. She looked after Julie because she was only 6 months by the time I started. So she looked after Julie while the Good News Club was going on to give me a wee bit of freedom.
Good of her, really,
yeah, you're a lovely lady. Okay, Arnold, moving on.
As the 80s began, we were both busy bees. Our girls, jobs, church, and Good News Club. And when the youth of our church congregated, our home in Glengormley was a busy hub.
And the baking for them, yes.
And the baking, yeah. And then a young Scotsman appeared on the scene. He had crossed the Irish Sea to inspire folks just like ourselves who were willing to let God's Spirit set them on fire. Tom Bathgate invested time in our lives. Full of faith, his fresh teaching was rare. It stirred our hearts and blew our minds, and we began to believe and to dare. We started to pray more together. Our love for Jesus began to increase. With Tom encouraging us to dream big, our faith to serve Jesus was being released.
I just say something about Tom. We're so grateful still today for Tom's input into our lives. And he really was a one-off, as we all are. We're all unique, but Tom really was something different that we had not encountered before in a person. And one thing that Tom did was really like expand our concept of God. I would say we probably had quite a narrow view of God really in those days. And but Tom expanded that. He was so fresh in his relationship with God that really inspired us and opened our eyes to a lot more. And especially what I remember particularly about Tom was how he taught about God being a father. And every time he started praying, he would say, Father. That's not really a Scottish accent, but never mind. But the thing about being a loving father rather than looking out for my mistakes and all that, I just loved that concept and still do today of God being a loving heavenly father.
It's good to remember when so many dads sadly aren't such good role models nowadays, just to know that our Heavenly Father is such a good role model for us.
Yep. And the perfect parent. And even he's got wayward kids. So can I just say to parents out there, don't worry if your children are a bit naughty, because God's children are too, and he's a perfect parent. That's my little thought for today. Bing!
Okay. Our love for children caused a seed thought to grow, to attend a CEF leadership course in a beautiful but expensive part of the world, Switzerland. But we didn't have the resource. What a test for the next step of our journey. 3 months unpaid leave was required, plus finding the fees for the institute meant our decision must be inspired.
Arnold, that 3 months leave, you didn't know that anybody had ever got that in the civil service before, unpaid leave. I mean, that's what we were asking for.
Ask for, really,
wasn't it? But the fact that I suppose that we were willing to go unpaid leave, but you knew your job would be secure after, and that was a big thing in our
service. It was a very secure job, and I was so grateful for that and for them giving me the time off to go to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted again.
What a test for the next step. Oh, sorry, I've read that. Good News Camp in the summer of 81 was followed by 2 weeks break in Cornwall, where we met David and Miriam from Lancashire, who would play a key role in our call. By Christmas, things weren't looking hopeful. Then a neighbour, Betty, delivered a plate, a ham joint for dinner prepared with love, a hint that God didn't want us to wait.
And what Betty didn't know was we actually had nothing for our tea that night with the girls, only some eggs and potatoes that I could make chips. And I would always rather have something a wee bit more than that for us and the girls for tea. But even with my wage coming in for night duty, which did cover the mortgage, which was amazing, 2 nights a week night duty, and Arnold working full time with the civil service and a good job in the civil service, we still ran out of money by the end of the month, particularly December.
Well, I think any young marriage will probably recognize that. It happens to a lot, doesn't it?
It does. Which meant that was really difficult for us to save, to even think about saving to do anything else. So egg and chips, I had actually put the chips in when the knock came to the door, and there was Betty with a ham joint already carved and all ready to eat in her hand. We can't use this. Dan got it given to him in work and we just can't use it. Could you guys use it? Oh yeah, I think so. Ham, egg and chips will do us very nicely. Thank you very much.
It was great.
Isn't that weird? It's so weird. Talk about something to build your faith and spur you on. Well done, Betty.
Inspired by God's care, we started to save and soon received some money gifts. Our request for 3 months on paid leave from work was granted, and that really gave us a lift. We learned that a Korean couple needed a home, so we offered them ours rent-free. Sharon and Julie still remember their thank you gifts 2 teddy bears as big as a tree.
Massive, bigger than them, weren't
They
they?
were. Those 3 months in Kilsimmer, that's Switzerland where we stayed, were really hard graft,
Mhm.
with Saturdays the only day free. But with students requesting haircuts from Pam, they weren't the rest days they were meant to be.
No, they weren't.
Swiss scenery was stunning and the weather was great, but it certainly wasn't a holiday. Daily lectures and assignments came thick and fast, yet that pressure just drove us to pray.
Do you know, doing people's hair was a great way to get to know people and get closer. It's
Yeah.
such a personal thing, isn't it? And I'm not a professional hairdresser, by the way, but they
You
were
did a
hard
good
up, weren't
job,
they?
obviously.
Thanks.
Still does on mine.
Yep, all these years later, because a hairdresser dared to do it when we were first married, and it was awful. It was not the way we liked Arnold's hair. And she heard about it. Oh dear, I was a wee bit more outspoken in those days in that area. Anyway, I'm sure she's forgiven me by now.
Yeah.
Whoever she is, don't even remember. Anyway, so the Saturdays I went around different students who wanted their hair cut, including the French students, which was a great way to brush up my French from school. I always liked languages, but never brilliant, unlike my brother Philip, who is a linguist, in case you didn't know. He actually, can I just say about Philip, you know what he and his wife Heather do? And they still work at it. And he's a wee bit older than me, just a little, not too much. They actually, well, they started off in a tribe in Africa and Ivory Coast who didn't even have their own language written down, had no alphabet
Wow.
or anything. And they went into that village with that tribe in Africa and started teaching them. They formed an alphabet for these people to be able to read. Isn't that
Amazing.
amazing? That is detail. Now you're talking about detail and slow, hard slog, as well as living in Africa with young children in a village, none of your high-rise flats or anything in the Ivory Coast. And they still do that today. That they actually, what they did for that Kuya tribe, they started translating the Bible for them that they would be able to read. And they are still involved in that amazing work today with lots of different tribes. Wycliffe Bible translators. There we
And
are.
talk about commitment. That
Wow.
process took 17 years.
Before just the last part of the Bible was done, the New Testament
So well
part.
done, Philip and Heather.
Yeah. We honor you. You're a good pair and still going. Now, where was I? Sorry, Philip distracted me, as he often did in childhood, and is obviously still doing
He
it
might
today.
think it would be the other way about.
Oops. So Saturdays, yeah, cutting the hair, and then Sunday. We did a Saturdays off, but Sunday we had to attend a service that was done in the building of the Institute. All the students had to go. And some of the villagers from Switzerland, it was way up in the mountains, beautiful, beautiful area. The villagers would come in for the service as well, and people around who, in different areas around, who wanted to join in. And the director, big charismatic personality, Sam Docherty, lovely big man, but a bit scary at the same time. He led those Sunday services mostly through. But he needed somebody to play the piano, and nobody came forward. And I play the piano a little bit, nothing like our Sharon, obviously.
She was a bit young in those days, Sharon.
Sharon was a wee bit young. She could have maybe done a better job. No, okay. So I tentatively offered, I can do it, but I do need time to practice. So I would need to know the hymns the day before. Now, who speaks to Sam Docherty like that?
Not many.
If he needed it done. There you go. That was my part of the contract, as it were. Do you know, one actual Sunday morning, 5 minutes before the service, 5 minutes, he handed me the list. What were you doing? He was in danger. I can't think of the phrase.
He was taking his life in his hands.
That'll do. That's what I get. I start choking because thinking about criticizing Sam. I'm not criticizing. An amazing man.
He's a great man.
Incredible man. A pioneer in children's work. Incredible man. So, but he survived that. And we move on to the classes. It was the first time that we had actually sat in classes together studying.
Back at school.
As you can imagine, Arnold was the perfect student.
I don't think so.
Arnold, seriously, you were so good. You were so good, so well behaved. I think
Well,
that was the
maybe
big.
that was it.
But I tended to get bored a bit. It wasn't that they weren't interesting, but it's got to
Your
be a bit
attention
bored.
does wander.
It does, still does today. I've worked at it, but not cracked it just yet. And I would be looking around the class and the ones whose hair I cut that previous weekend to make sure that I get those layers right. Are they even? There's no wee wispy bits sitting out there. Or I would give Holly Moon in front of me. Molly Moon. Sorry, Molly, if you watch this, or anybody that knows her. Molly giving her a wee dig through the desk, the way you do. It's just like being back at school. Or I'd write little notes to Arnold and try and make him laugh. But
I'm bored.
that was quite frequent, that one. And then if it needed to be underlined and underlined again. But
it
anyway,
was 3 months we were away, so
it was.
The course was great, but obviously for some people it was difficult at times.
We were so grateful the girls were looked after by a girl, actually Northern Irish girl, who came over to do it all summer while we were in lectures. We were doing that. There was one particular lecturer, Miss Baloney, Arnold. You were her little pet, weren't you? She gave you an A for victorious Christian living. Why did I not get
She
an
was
A?
from America, wasn't she? Yeah, I think so.
What I remember about her, she used a French Bible. But anyway.
Maybe she was a missionary in France.
I'm just trying to signal to Arnold to come over a wee bit so he doesn't. Yeah, sorry, there we go. It is live, folks. Sorry about that. So yeah, that was the classes. Hard work, hard slog, but very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, great.
Nevertheless. Are we moving on?
One particular day, Sharon was chased by a bull, would you believe? On another, Julie fell down marble stairs. 4 lads from the Congo had sussed her 3-year-old out. Julie Monkey knowingly declared. The food Dora cooked was delicious, but we still loved to visit the tuck shop. Not just for Sharon and Julie's enjoyment, but because Swiss chocolate really does rock.
Yes. And we mentioned about money earlier and trying to save because we had to get obviously our flights out there and back again, and the fees for the institute, rightly so. There has to be fees for doing such a course, and any books we needed.
Really, when you think
it
about
was
it,
really. And Dora was a great cook. Any leftovers from the day before got made into soup, and they were delicious soups as well. A bit like being at Slimming World, isn't it? Reliving those days. No, Dora was a great cook. So the tuck shop, you see, you got distracted to chocolate. One of the things we learned with, we wanted to make sure we paid off our fees before the end of the institute, before the end of the 3 months. We didn't want to come home owing any debt. We've always tried to live our lives like that, not wanting to owe any debt. And so we prayed and prayed, obviously, and more gifts came in. But do you know what? Talk about this loving Heavenly Father. He was always also generous because we actually got enough money to spend in the tuck shop as well. We did get enough food. We didn't need the tuck shop, but so generous.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Brilliant. And am I meant to say anything else? You see, I forget that every time. Hold on. I know. Oh, I'm laughing now, but I tell you, I wasn't laughing then. Arnold and some of the other students had to go to Germany to do practice summer clubs on the children in an Air Force base, I think it was.
An American Air Force base in Germany.
Mm-hmm. But there were 3 of us Irish mums with children, and there wasn't room for the children to go. They couldn't go. So we had to stay behind. Now, that was tough. We were in a strange country and that, and Arnold wasn't with me, and I was with the girls on my own. But the thing about it was we were expected to actually teach our own children the same program that was on the curriculum right through CEF for that summer, and that what Arnold would be teaching in Germany as well. But our girls had already been through that, and the other children, Northern Irish children, had already been through that program. And we didn't want to put our children through it again, to sit and listen to the same stories, play the same quizzes, sing the same songs. But we had to do it. But we found ways of having fun as well as 3 Irish mums. And, we were longing for chips. We missed our chips in Switzerland. And we talked to Dora in the kitchen. She maybe felt sorry for us in the end without her husband. So we talked to Dora, and there was an old cast iron pot found in a loft or somewhere in this big old building that the Kilsimmer, they had renovated and all, but obviously there were old parts in it as well. And so we took this cast iron pot, we filled it with oil, we chopped up some potatoes for chips, heated the oil, and then we put the chips in. We could not wait for our chips. We promised the children chips. We were all excited. And with those chips brown, oh, do you know in the end what we did to try and make them brown? We had to make them look brown. That's better. They're browning now, Marion. They're browning now. Look, Anne. They're getting brown. Look. That was the only way they would go brown. But they were still tasty. And they were cooked. So that was good. Sorry, I will put on my glasses again to see, because I don't know what I'm meant to be saying next. I did all right there without them. I think that's all actually that I want to say there. Sorry.
Okay. So the volleyball court provided much fun. Staff v students was the highlight of the week, with director Sam Docherty determined to win. Us students got hardly a peek. Those months were intense, but we had no regrets. We had learned so much at the Institute, got to know folks from other nations, and came home having lots to compute. The months back at home were a challenge. We knew it wouldn't be an easy ride, but Jesus' promise was, I won't leave you. I will always be there by your side. So our forward momentum was building, but a hop and step left us up in the air. Next in the sequence would be a jump, but our big question was, a jump to where?
And that's where we'll leave you hanging this week. Goodbye. Have a lovely weekend and a lovely week next week.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.